night of primetime boxing. Saturday on Sky Sports Box Office. To order, see Channel 491, press the green button or go to skysports.com/book.
This is James Holder for IFL TV in association with Macklin's Gym Marbella. We're at the press conference today for the big fight. Kell Brook defending his IBF World title against Frankie Gavin. With me, I'm joined by trainer Dominic Ingle. How you doing, Dom?
All right, you?
I'm very well, sir. Thank you. Good. Can you tell me a little bit about how Kell's preparation's been for this?
He's, he had a few days off after his last fight. You know, there's only 8 weeks between, his last fight and this one. A few days off. End of that week, he ran the Sheffield Half Marathon, put in a very good time. You know, it was a bit of a meet and greet with the fans as he was jogging around signing T-shirts and photographs. And we had a couple of weeks in Sheffield back training, then over to Fuerteventura for some, hot weather training. He's trained really well. His fitness level's good. His weight's good, and it's a fight he's looking forward to.
That's what I mean. Kell's got his mandatory commitments out of the way with Jojo Dan. He's then entitled by all rights to have a voluntary. Why not fight a British fighter rather than Frankie going all the way around to get the shot in the end up? I think it was fantastic.
He was good. Listen, Frankie Gavin was in line to fight Eliminator with Timothy Bradley, I think, and really, this is like an unofficial mandatory. It could have probably been made a mandatory fight if Eddie had wanted to do that, and I think it'd have got the mandatory status because Frankie was more or less next in line. So you can't fault Frankie for jumping the queue. I mean, Timothy Bradley, which had probably gone on in America, would be a hard fight for him. So Eddie's done him a favour and given him the chance. Having to go through a hard fight first. He's been around for a long time. Frankie, same age as Kell. Good amateur career, not a bad professional career, only one loss on his record, to a guy who went over and boxed Thurman in America and did the distance. So he's a tough operator, good on his feet, and let's see what happens on Saturday night.
I mean, can you take anything away from the Bundu fight, as you said, to Frankie's performance, or do you think he just had a bad night that night?
For me, Frankie's never really been consistent all the way through. He has, he beats people. But his performances aren't always consistent. Sometimes he scrapes through, sometimes he beats them easy. He generally gets the win, and with Bundu, if it hadn't been for the body shot, he'd probably just scrape through that fight as well. So you can't take anything from that. For me, Bundu's a tricky operator, he's experienced, he's a tough kid. So for me, it could have gone either way, that fight. And he's had a couple of wins since, and he's back on track, and he's got himself up the rating, so he deserves his shot.
Interesting enough, first time 2 British men have fought for a welterweight world title in England. What do you think of the history, and is Kell aware of them kind of statistics? Not
really. I mean, Kell just beats people who's put in front of him. I think that's more for the the fans who look at that kind of stuff, look at the statistics and what the numbers are, and it's interesting. Let's just see what happens with it. Let's hope the fight is a good fight. Frankie can be a bit negative at times, fighting on the back foot. I remember him boxing Skeet, and it was a pretty boring fight. He just managed to get that one. But I think the way Frankie fights, Kell being aggressive, it should make for a good fight.
After this fight, not looking ahead, but there's some massive names in the welterweight division. Do you think Kell runs the risk where he possibly could look ahead, thinking about these big purses and these big fights?
No, I mean he's been in this position for a long time, hasn't he? We've always been talking about the big fights and the world title fights well in advance. When he was boxing the likes of Carson Jones, people were saying the first thing, are you going, the same thing, are you going to overlook Carson Jones, and miss the bigger fights? And he managed to keep his head straight, keep focused on what's in front of him, and it's always about beating the guy on the night and then looking past it after that.
I want to ask you about Kid Galahad. If you don't want to answer my questions, that's by all means, you don't have to answer my questions. But if I don't ask you, people are going to give me abuse saying I'm not doing my job properly. Is there any light being shed on the Kid Galahad?
No, I'm saying he's got his appeal. He's got his appeal. He's sending his appeal on Friday. We had 21 days after the decision was made. He's going to appeal that, and we're going to take it from there. But everybody knows Barry. He's a clean living kid, doesn't do anything wrong, and these things happen. And he's down here today at the press conference. He's here to support Kell. They train together, they work well together. He's not going to go hiding away. Things like this in life happen. Kell got stabbed a couple of months back. It was a life and death situation. With boxers, they're always going to be in these situations. Something always is going to happen. And hopefully we can get him through this, and get the appeal through and get some time off. Then he'll be back in the ring as soon as he can.
All right, well listen, Domingo, I'm not going to take up too much time in case the press conference starts while we're grabbing a cup of tea. I thank you very much for giving me some of your time, sir, and I'll catch you at the weigh-in tomorrow.
No problem.
Thank you, Dom.